ओम श्री परमात्मने नमः। नारायणं नमस्कृते नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरयेत्। श्रीमद् भागवत गीता साधक संजीवनी फर्स्ट चैप्टर ऑब्जर्विंग द आर्मीज ऑन द बैटलफील्ड ऑफ कुरुक्षेत्र वर्सेस 1 to 11. Description of the names of the chief great charioteers of the Pandava and the Kaurava army. Introduction. After the expiration of 12 years of exile and residing in an unknown place for 1 year, the Pandavas demanded half of their kingdom from Duryodhana as was his promise, but he refused to give them as much land as could be covered by the point of a needle without waging war. The Pandavas sought permission from their mother Kunti and accepted the challenge of the war. After this decision, both the Kauravas and the Pandavas began preparation for it. Sage Vedavyasa had great affection for Dhrtarastra, the blind king of Hastinapura. Due to his affection, he said to Dhrtarashtra, "War and massacre of the Kshatriyas is inevitable. If you want to see the scene of the battlefield, I can endow you with divine insight so as to enable you to see the scene of war from the place you are sitting." Dhritarashtra said, "I have been blind all my life. Now I don't want to see the slaughter of my own kith and kin, but I want to hear the details of the war." Then sage Vyasa said, "I endow Sanjaya with this divine insight by which he will know, hear and see not only the incidents of the battlefield but also the ideas in the minds of the warriors and will narrate them to you." Saying so, sage Vyasa endowed Sanjaya with the divine vision. The battle started on the battlefield of Kuruksetra at the appointed hour. Sanjaya stayed in the battlefield for 10 days. When Bhishma, being badly wounded with the arrows, fell off the chariot, Sanjaya conveyed the message to Dhritarashtra, who at that time was present in Hastinapura. Hearing this news, Dhritarashtra was filled with great sorrow and started weeping. Then he asked Sanjaya to narrate to him all the details of the war. Up to the 24th chapter of the Bhishma Parva, Sanjaya narrated the incidents of the war. In the beginning of the 25th chapter, Dhritarashtra asks Sanjaya. Verse 1. Dhritarashtra uvacha dharmakshetre kurukshetre samaveta yuyutsvaha mamkaha pandavascheva kimakruvata Sanjaya. Dhritarashtra said, "O Sanjaya, assembled on the holy field of Kuruksetra, eager to fight, what did my sons and the sons of Pandu do?" Comment. Dharmakshetre Kuruksetre. In Kuruksetra, the gods performed holy sacrifice. King Kuru also performed penance there. Thus, being saturated with a spiritual atmosphere, the field of Kuruksetra has been called the field of righteousness, Dharmakshetra. This is not merely the battlefield, but the land of pilgrimage in which human beings, by performing holy actions, can attain benediction in this life. Therefore, by consulting the noble persons, this land has been chosen for both mundane and ultra-mundane benefits. There are three root causes of disputes, namely land, wealth and woman. Out of these three, the kings primarily fight for land. Hence, there is a significance of the name Kuruksetra here. In the Kuru family, the sons of Dhritarashtra as well as those of Pandu are included. Therefore, both of them have an equal claim over the land of Kuru. But the Kauravas refused to give the Pandavas their share of land. So the war between them becomes inevitable. From the words Dharmakshetre, Kurukshetre, all of us should learn that all actions should be performed by following the path of righteousness. Every action should be performed not with a selfish motive but for the welfare of all. And the scriptures should be the authority in determining what ought to be done and what ought not to be done. Duryodhana did not accept the peace negotiations despite repeated proposals from kings. Nay, when Lord Krishna came to intervene as a mediator, Duryodhana bluntly refused to part with even as much land as could be covered by the point of a needle without waging a war. Thus, Pandavas had no alternative but to fight. Thus, the two groups assembled to fight. Though the two groups assembled to fight, yet Duryodhana had a keener desire for war in order to usurp the kingdom by fair means or foul, just means or unjust, namely by hook or crook. Thus, his side was very much willing to wage a war. The Pandavas had the virtue of righteousness on their side. For the sake of justice, they were prepared to face any hardship. Knowing the deadly consequences of a war, Yudhishthira did not want to indulge in it. But as by obeying their mother, the five Pandavas had married Draupadi, Yudhishthira, by obeying his mother, became willing to fight. Thus, Duryodhana and the members of his group were eager to fight for usurping the kingdom, while the Pandavas were compelled to fight for righteousness. The Pandavas regarded Dhrtarastra, being the elder brother of their father, as their father and obeyed his order whether it was just or unjust. But Dhrtarashtra was not impartial. He had partiality for his sons. It was because of his partial attitude that he had to suffer torture of destruction of his family. Therefore, every human being should learn a lesson that he should not be partial to the members of his house, street, village, province, country, and sect, because partiality leads to conflict rather than love and goodwill. Verse 2. Sanjaya Uvacha दृष्ट्वा तु पाण्डवानीकं व्यूढां दुर्योधनस्तदा आचार्यम् उपसंगम्य राजा वचनम अब्रवीत. Sanjaya said, at that time, seeing the army of the Pandavas arrayed properly, approaching Dronacharya, Prince Duryodhana spoke these words. Comment. The army of the Pandavas was arrayed properly, namely, the warriors had no difference in their opinion. Righteousness and Lord Krishna were in their favor. Therefore, the Pandavas, though fewer in number, had greater influence. Seeing their army arrayed properly, Duryodhana was also influenced. So he, approaching Dronacharya, spoke prudential and serious words. Duryodhana was called Raja, the king, because Dhritarashtra had greatest attachment and affection for Duryodhana. Moreover, Duryodhana was the prince. He looked after the affairs of the empire, while Dhritarashtra was only the nominal head of the empire. Duryodhana was the main cause of the warfare also. It was because of all these factors that he was called king by Sanjaya. Here a question may be raised that Duryodhana should have first of all approached Bhishma because Bhishma was the commander supreme. Then why did he approach Dronacharya? The answer is that Drona and Bhishma both loved the Pandavas and the Kauravas, but Drona had special kindness and love for Arjuna. Moreover, Duryodhana had pupil-preceptor relationship with Drona, but he had no family relationship with him. Therefore, it was proper on his part to go to Drona in order to please him. In practical life also, it is seen that a man for his selfish interest tries to please the person who is not closely related to him by giving him regard. It was proper on his part to go to Dronacharya to express his regard for him because he was his preceptor. It is very significant for the chief warrior not to leave his position, otherwise the whole order of the army is disturbed. So it was proper on the part of Duryodhana to go to Dronacharya. Duryodhana, approaching Drona, speaks the following words. Verse 3. Pashetam Pandu Putranam Acharya Mahatim Chamum Vyudham Drupada Putrena Tava Shishyena Dhimata. Behold, O Master, this mighty army of the sons of Pandu arrayed for the battle by your talented pupil Dhrishdyumna, the son of Drupada. In this shloka, Duryodhana means to say that Dronacharya is the preceptor who taught the Kauravas and the Pandavas the science of warfare, so he should not be partial to either of the groups. Secondly, Drona is so simple-hearted that he has taught the science of warfare to Dhrishdyumna, Drupada's son, who is born to kill him, Drona, and who is so clever that he is determined to vanquish and kill none other than his own preceptor. Duryodhana intentionally used Drupad Putrena to remind Dronacharya of the enmity that Drupada had with him. So he meant that it was a good opportunity to take revenge. The Pandavas have made the son of Drupada the general of their army so that he may kill Dronacharya. Had they loved Dronacharya, they would never have appointed him general. Though the army of the Kauravas was larger than that of the Pandavas because the army of the Kauravas was 11 Akshohini, while that of the Pandavas was only 7 Akshohini. Yet the army of the Pandavas seemed to Duryodhana larger than what it actually was. The army of the Pandavas seemed more formidable to Duryodhana because it was arrayed in such a manner that even a small army seemed larger to Duryodhana. All the warriors of the Pandavas' army were united and of one mind, so it seemed larger in strength and enthusiasm. Drawing Drona's attention to the army of the Pandavas, Duryodhana wants to say to Dronacharya that he should not regard the army of the rival group as common and small. He should fight carefully with all his might. And it was not difficult for him to defeat the son of Drupada because he was his pupil. After requesting Dronacharya to behold the army of the Pandavas, now Duryodhana shows him the chariot warriors of the army of the Pandavas. Verses 4 to 6. Atra Shura Maheshwasa Bhima Arjuna Samayudhi Yuyudhano Viratascha Drupadascha Maharatha Dhrishtaketuschekitanaha Kashirajascha Viryavan Purujit Kunti Bhojascha Shebyascha Narpungvaha युधामन्युश्च विक्रान्ता उत्मोजाश्च वीर्यवान् सौभद्रो द्रौपदयश्च सर्व एव महारथाः. There in the army of the Pandavas are mighty archers, peers in warfare to heroic Arjuna and Bhima, such as Satyaki and Virata and the great chariot warrior Drupada. Dhrishketu, Chekitana, the valiant king of Kashi, Purujit, Kuntibhoja and Shebya, the best of men are also there. Mighty Yudhamanyu, valiant Utmoja, Abhimanyu, the son of Subhadra, and the 5 sons of Draupadi are also there. All of them are great chariot warriors. Duryodhana described valor, bravery and skill of the army of the Pandavas in warfare so that hatred might be aroused in Dronacharya against the Pandavas and he might be full of greater zeal. But then a second thought came to his mind that Drona was at heart partial to the Pandavas. So he might make a peace treaty with the Pandavas. As soon as this thought came to his mind, he described the heroes of his side who were very well trained in warfare in the next 3 verses. Verse 7. Asmakam tu vishishta ye tan nibodha vijottama naika mama sanyasya sangyartham tan brivimite. O best of the twice born Brahmana, know the principal warriors, the generals of my army also. I name them for your information. Verse 8. Bhavan Bhishmascha Karanascha Kripascha Samityanjaha Ashwathama Vikaranascha Sam Dattistathaeva. Yourself, Bhishma, Karna, and Kripa, who is ever victorious in battle, and Ashwathama, Vikarna, and Somdatti, Bhurishrava, the son of Somdatta. Verse 9. Anye cha bahavaha shura madarthe tyakta jivitaha nana shastra praharanaha sarve yudha vishardaha. And there are many other heroes well trained in warfare who, equipped with various weapons and missiles, have staked their lives for my sake. Comment. In these verses, Duryodhana probably wants to say that his side is in no way weaker than that of the Pandavas, but is rather stronger. Yet, according to politics, however weak the army of the enemy may be, it should not be regarded as weak. Therefore, they should not have in the least the feeling of neglect and indifference towards the enemy. So, he has already described the warriors of the other side to make him careful, and now he is telling the names of the warriors of his army. Secondly, after seeing the army of the Pandavas compact and well disciplined, he was influenced and also a bit afraid. The reason was that, in spite of being small, there were several righteous persons, and also Lord Krishna himself was there in that army. The righteous persons and God leave their influence on all the creatures, including those having the most sinful conduct, and even on animals, birds, trees, and plants. The reason is that God and righteousness are eternal, while all the temporal powers are transient. Therefore, Duryodhana is also influenced by the army of the Pandavas, but depending on the material and temporal power, he wants to assure Dronacharya that their army is superior to that of the Pandavas. Therefore, they can easily gain a victory over the army of the Pandavas. When Duryodhana could not trick Dronacharya, he had a second thought. This thought is described by Sanjaya in the next verse. Verse 10. Apratyam tadasmakam balam bhishmabhirakshitam paryaptam tvidmetesham balam bhimabhirakshitam. Our army is meager and easy to conquer because it is guarded by Bhishma, a well-wisher of both the armies. But their army, marshalled by Bhima, is unconquerable because Bhima is partial only to his own army. Comment. Duryodhana thinks about his army. Our army is, though larger than that of the Pandavas, is easy to be conquered because our army is unwieldy, indisciplined, disunited, and faint-hearted, while the army of the Pandavas is compact, disciplined, united, and fearless. The protector of their army is Bhima, who is brave and who has always defeated me since childhood. The chief protector of our army is Bhishma, who is friendly to both the armies. He is a great devotee to Krishna. He in his heart has a great respect for Yudhishthira and great love for Arjuna. Therefore, though outwardly he is on our side, yet at heart he is a well-wisher of the Pandavas. Here a doubt may arise that Duryodhana named Bhishma, who was their field marshal, in defense of their army, but he named Bhima, who was not a field marshal, in defense of the army of the Pandavas. The answer is that at that time Duryodhana was not thinking about the field marshals but about the power of the two armies. Duryodhana was very much influenced by Bhima's power, so he named Bhima as a protector of the army of the Pandavas. An important fact. In Duryodhana's heart there are unrighteousness, injustice, and sin, and it is a rule that an unrighteous, unjust, and sinful person can't live happily and peacefully. A person who depends on perishable riches and property, etc., and whose heart is full of unrighteousness, injustice, and ill feelings doesn't possess real power. He is hollow from within and is never fearless. On the other hand, one who depends on God and follows righteousness is never horror struck. His power is real and he always remains free from cares and fears. Therefore, the strivers who aspire for God realization should perform their duty by depending only on God, and for His sake by renouncing unrighteousness and injustice, etc. They should never follow the path of unrighteousness by attaching importance to material prosperity and contact born pleasures, because these two lead men to damnation. Now Duryodhana gives instruction to all the great chariot warriors of his army to please Bhishma and says, verse 11, Aineshu cha sarveshu yatha bhagam vasthetaha Bhishmameva bhirakshantu bhavantaha sarva eva hi. Now, all of you, stationed in your respective positions on all fronts, guard Bhishma in particular by all means. Comment. By saying the above words, Duryodhana wants to please Bhishma so that he may be partial to his army. Secondly, he gives the instruction to the warriors of his army to see that Shikhandi should not come before Bhishma. If Shikhandi comes before Bhishma, the latter will not use his arms and weapons on him, because he was a woman in the previous birth, and in that birth also first he was a woman and later he was changed into a man. So Bhishma, by regarding him as a woman, has promised not to fight with Shikhandi. Shikhandi has taken birth by Lord Shiva's boon to kill Bhishma. Therefore, if Bhishma is protected from Shikhandi, he will kill all the other warriors of the army of the Pandavas and their victory is certain. Therefore, Duryodhana gives instruction to all the great chariot warriors of his army to guard Bhishma. Om Tat Sat. All glories to Sri Partha Sarthi, Lord Shri Krishna. All glories to Bhagavad Vani, Srimad Bhagavad-Gita. Sri Hari Arpanamastu.